Welcome all to this session. So today I'm going to talk about the Dart basics. It's just the basics of Dart and how the variables and the syntax, everything will be used in Dart. So the first place to go to Dart while learning Dart, you need to go to the Dart.dev document section, from where you get all the details of Dart and everything. So I will be briefing out these details in a small session, and I am using Dartpad to illustrate the examples. Starting from the slides, the first things is the types. So Dart has the basic types and some superset of basic types which all other languages has, like int, double, string, bool, like everything, array. So the basic types are the int, double, string, bool, and list. List means array. And also we have objects like map, set, and also we can create custom types. So I will be going through each of these one by one. So first one is the int. So in Dart we can assign a variable in many ways. The first way is to declare the variable as a var and the name of the variable, then assign equal to means that which value we need to assign. It's an assign statement, and the value. So when we do like this, we will get the integer value. The Dart assumes that because we are passing an integer, Dart assumes this will be an integer. So we are not specifying it anywhere, but Dart smartly assumes that it is an integer, and we are defining it as a var. Var is a generic type used in Dart, but we can state the type of this integer. So you can pass that int here equal to the value, then it will be an explicit integer. So we can test the type of it, like runtime type. So it will print int. The type of the variable is int. This is how we will add integer values to the Dart. Another thing is, instead of var we can also use final and const, because there is a difference between declaring variable final and const and static variables. So here we know that pi, we are sure that this value is not going to change. So we can create this as a const int pi. Sorry, it's not int, it's double. Const double pi, because it has a decimal value. So this const keyword will be declare this pi as a constant variable throughout the app. It's never change in the entire life cycle of the app. And we have also a final variable which is almost same like const, but it is final variables are, it can change sometimes according to the instances we pass. I will come to that later. So these are the two main integer and double variables do used in Dart. And one more type is that num. Num means, num is also an integer variable. We can pass integer to it. Also we can pass any double values to it. So both integer and double values can be passed to num variables. Here in double we can pass this dot values, and in int we can only pass the integer values. But in number we can pass both values, int and double. So num is a superset of double and year. We can use for both. If we print, you will get the value. We can assign pi to number. Also we can assign integer to number. Both are possible. Okay. Now it will become year. So these are the main types of integer types, integer and number types. So I have talked about the first three, integer, double and num. Now we have the string variables. String variables are the most common variables in Dart. We assign it like name equal to a string. String is assigned in two types. We can assign like this in a single quotes, or we can use double quotes, but single quotes is the preferred way as mentioned by the Dart style guide. So we are using the single quotes. We print it, we will get the name Dart. And it is also good practice to cast the variable to the its type if we know. So we can cast it like string name equal to Dart. So later on we cannot pass any integer or any value to the name, so it will make a compile time error. No, it will make a runtime error, so it will not run any other values passed to it. But once we pass the name like this, it is a, we can even change that value. So now we have declared it as Dart. Later on we changed the value to 1 2 3. Now it's become 1 2 3. So we can change this value. If you add a const or final before this keyword, it is not possible. So that's the difference. And while talking about the declaring the int variable, string variables, we have so many options. The first one is, for example, we can do additional concatenation and interpolation to this string. If you want to add more values to it, we have another variable called if you want to include it in the dot, we can use the interpolation. How we use that is we use a dollar sign, then curly bracket. Now it will print dot 1 2 3. This can also be done if we are using an int variable. Sorry, it would be double. This also can, because this will convert the integer into string. So if we are using a single variable, we don't need to use this brackets. So dot will understand this is a variable. So this is one way, and there is another way we can use the plus sign, but dot is not recommended this way. We don't need the dollar sign. So here we cannot pass the version to a string because this is an integer, this is a double, so we can convert into to string. So this way is not recommended by dot. So dot is recommended to use the interpolation way. So one more thing is, if we have a long string and we need to have it in a readable manner, we can use the so we can write like this. So if we write like that, it will join the entire string to a one. We add a space. So dot will automatically join these things one by one. So basically what happening is dot is doing like this and concatenating all the strings. And there is another way to do it, which is an easy way. We can use a if you do like this, everything inside this dot will consider as a string, and in the new line will be taken as /n by default. So if you print like this, the entire string will be printable, and it also looks readable. If you have a long string, we can do like this. Also, because we are using a string in dot, string has so many methods. So if you put a dot in after the name is a string, we have almost so many methods to do. We can get the index, we can check any letter containing the string or any pattern. We can compare the string with another strings, and we can get the length of the string, the total length of the string. All methods are available when we declare it as a string. We can get the index, we can change the index, we can change it everything into lowercase to uppercase. These all are the methods Dart providing us for the string variable. Okay. So these are the basics about the string. Another one is Boolean. So Boolean is we can declare, if you declare true or false, Dart will automatically take it as a Boolean, or else we can explicitly define it as a Boolean. So the only two values going here are true or false. That's about the Boolean. Now we have list. List means in other languages we call it as arrays. So this is the way to create an array. We declare as var poles and start with a square bracket and end with a square bracket. Everything comes under this are the children of the array. We can explicitly do list string poles. That means we are saying that inside this array only strings are possible. So if we print this array, we will get the north and south. We cannot add any number or integer inside that. It will create an linting error. So if we are not declaring any type to it, it will print the both items, because this list is basically a dynamic. It will automatically become a dynamic list, dynamic by Dart. And the list has so many methods. So list has a ton of methods. We can get the length of the list. Here we have 2. We can get the first item. We can get the items by index. We can check for it is empty or not. Is it empty or is not empty? If we check is empty, this will return false because it's not empty. Same goes for the is not empty. And we can get the last value. We can add items to it. So if we add poles dot add, we add a string called south. The the south will be added to the last item to the to this list. We can also have the remove also. We can check for any elements in it. We can loop the array and get the result. These are the functions that available to the arrays. If you want to remove an item at a specific index, we can do like poles dot remove at, and the index, if you want to remove this one, this is the third item now, second item now. Second, so we want to remove this, it will start from 0 1, now it will be 1. We want to remove this integer. Now the second element is gone. These are the basics with the list method. One more thing we can do with the list is that the spread operator. Spread operator means we can have an array and we can assign that array to another array by doing a 3 dots. So the entire thing in the first array will be attached to the first part of the newly creating array and the rest of the thing. So we have a list called A, which has 1, 2 and 3 integer values, and I have a condition also. So I will come to the condition later. If I want to assign all the values inside A and some new values, it will be like this: 3 dots and the array, then the next arrays. So it will be like 1 2 3 and 4 5. We can do this anywhere. If you want the last part of the array, we can do like that. So the 1 2 3 come after 4 and 5. We can also have conditions to add this array. So we have 4 and 5 in the B array, and we also want to add the first array if my condition is true. So we can add if my condition, do the spread operation, else I just want to add a 0, or else I don't want anything. If I can do like this. So because my condition is true, this will add 1 2 3. If it is false, it will only add the first one because my condition is false. So these are the spread operations in arrays. Before moving to others, there is one more concept called typecasting. We can cast a variable to another variable. So in Dart, every declared variable is an object. So if we just in the previous we are declared like this, var name equal to something. So if you declare as a var, this will be an object. That's the basic part of the dot. And whatever the value we assign, the dot will change into the accordingly. If you pass string, this will be a string object. If you pass a integer, it will be an integer object. So we can also declare like this, object equal to dot. So here what happened is we are not declaring it as a string, it as an object, but we know that dot is a string. So we can, if we are assigning this object to any other string we declared here, we can use as. So only string variables is assigned to this variable because we are declared as string. We cannot add obj to string because object is not a string. So here the error says value type object can't be assigned to variable string. But we are sure that the value passed to object is an string. So we can do like this, as obj. Sorry, as string. So I am casting this obj from object to string. And if I print that, it will print the dot. This is casting. So another way of, not the another way, there is one more thing is called is, as and is. Is means we can check the typecast of a variable. So we declared obj as an object, and we don't know what is the data inside it. So we can check that the object is string. If you do a if condition saying that the object is string, this will print a object is string because we know that it is a string. Object is a string, but instead of string we pass a integer, it will print that object is not a string. So this is the way to get the type of an object. These are for the typecasting. Okay, now we have covered the list. Now we move on to the map. So map are declared as curly bracket start and end, and inside that we can assign the values like this is the key and this is the value, and it is separated by a colon. Key, now we have a string and array. Key is string and the value is an array. Here key is the string and value is also a string. So we can use, instead of var, we can use a map here. This is the dot map, which is same as an object, and we return the values. So map is, we can declare map as what we want. So if we declare as a string dynamic, we get the value, because the string means the key also, every key is a string, and the values are dynamic because it's a string in array, string and integer. But if we declare it as an int, we get an error that the values can be array or a string. So here also we need to pass the integers, then only it will compile. So we can typecast here whatever way we need. If we are not doing anything, it will take the dynamic type. We can pass anything to a map. So map is the most used type in programming. So we store the almost all data in map, like JSON things, everything as maps. Map also has so many methods. We can check for the is empty or not. It's not empty. We can get the keys on, so this will only print the keys, tags, URL and size. We can get the keys like this, or we can get the values. So it will print the values, only the values. So there are many methods for the map. We can add a item. We can check for this map contains any type of key. So if you want to check that this map has the tags, we can check it has this contains key. So it will be true because we have this tags. If is something else, it will say false. It's same for the contain values. Sorry, not contains value. We pass 1, 2, 3 because we have a 1, 2, 3 value. We will get true. So we can check for the keys and values inside a map. Also we can loop the map and get the values. All type of everything that has the list has also here also in the map. You can update everything. So I'm not going through all of this. So these are the maps. And one more thing is set. Set means is exactly like map, but it's exactly like map, but we are design a specific type to it. So by first we declare set as an integer, we need it as an integer, and we initialize with an empty int set. So here we can only add the integers. We are sure that these numbers will hold only integers. That's the difference between map and set. And set also has so many additional methods that map doesn't have. It has all the methods map has, and we can check the difference because we know that it's a type, it's the strict type. So there are so many methods we can do with set. So basically set means it's a map, but it has a strict typecasting to it. So that's the set. We also talked the var. Dynamic means it also same as var, but we are not sure about the values. Object is, these three things are almost same, and we have the custom types. We can also create our custom types. I will come to that later. So these are the basic types Dart has. Okay, now we move on to, we previously see that const vs const and final variables. So now we need to know why we use where we use finals and where we use const. So what's the difference between the const and finals variables? So both are similar, but it has some differences. The first difference is final keyword is used to declare a variable that can only be assigned once. Once a final variable is assigned, the values cannot be changed. So finals are, as name says, it can only assign a value once. And the important thing is final variables are evaluated at runtime. So if you have created a class and we have a final variable, it is evaluated at the runtime, and second time we call that same instance, the value can be changed. So it will be a different value, but at the runtime whatever the value is there, it will be final. I will go through an example. So here I created a small class in Dart. So this is a class. This is how we create a class in Dart. It's very simple. We create a name and say that it is a class. While creating class, naming convention should be followed. There will be it will start from capital, and every other word will be a uppercase. And this is the instant variable for this class. We have only one, which is a final string name. So we have created this as a final, and this is our constructor. We are initializing the variable here, and we have a method inside that class which is a void method, name, print name. This name also followed the naming convention. If you write a function name, it will follow the camel case naming. So the first letter will be small, and any word coming after that will be a uppercase letter, and it just prints the name whichever we pass to it. So the first example, so here we declare a final variable and call this class final example, and with the final example needs a variable name as a string. So we pass a string here, and we use the method inside this class called print name to print the data. We can access it by a dot. So if we print this, it will print the string. But if we create a second instance of that same class and pass another string, it will print the second string. So we declare this as a final, but for every instance, whatever we pass into that class, in the lifetime of this class it will be final. So for the another instance the string is different but the name is final for this class. So that's what it's saying. Final variables can different values in different instances of a class if they are not declared as static. We are not declared as static, so this is just a final. If we declared it as a static, we cannot pass another value because it's already set. So this is the example for the final variable. Const variables mean keyword used to declare compile time constants. So that means whenever the app is compiled, the values get added and it cannot be changed later. So we here in previous we declared const double pi value. So we sure that pi's value are not going to change. So we can add a const double. So for the entire app the pi will be 3.14. So const is used for the measurements like weight, or the things will not change, the currency like that, denominations, all things which is not change, we will add const. Const variables are evaluated at compile time. Whenever the app is compiled, the value will be assigned to this variable. It cannot be changed later anywhere in the app. So final variables can be changed when we initiate the new class. That's why we can pass another string. These are the main difference between final and const variables. So the last thing I am going to talk about is that the custom types, or we can create a custom class according to our needs. So here I am going to create a class called person, which has 3 instance variables: first name, last name and age, and it has a constructor called, and it initiates the 3 variables. And I have a method called print info which will print the name, encapsulating first name and last name, and the age below that. So I can call my class like this: person1, and assign a person class to it. So person has the 2 string variables and an integer age. So I need to pass the first name, last name and the age. So I have created 2 instances of a person, person1 and person2. If I print that, it will print name, first name and last name and age for the first person and for the second person. So we are declared here the method. This is how create our custom class. And in custom class we have all the many functions and methods to do. So we already created person1, John Doe 30. If you want to change something in later, we can do person1 dot first name equal to, we need to pass a string Johnny. Now I run the code. The first person will be Johnny Doe. We declared as John first, then after in the code we change it to Johnny. Now Johnny Doe. We can do the same for the last name. So now it changed to Johnny Depp. There is a shorthand for doing this. Instead of doing one by one, we can use the there is a concept called double dots. If you add two dots and first name, that will be equal to Johnny. Then we will do the last name. Then I will do the age, which is an integer. This is a shorthand for writing the previous thing. It will be Johnny Depp. The age will be changed to 20. So this will be much more readable and short. We can manipulate the class like this. And these are the basics of class. I have some tips for that. So the first tip is use meaningful variable names. So naming convention is must follow for any programming language. So the variable we declare should be a meaning, should have a meaning. It cannot be just like x, y, z, not like that. It should have the meaning what we are accepting the value for, which value. It like age for a single, and the name convention goes, if you have some more words to it, we can have the, like for the age of the adults we will use the age adult. So the a will be uppercase, like we follow the camel case. Camel case scenario. This is how we follow. If it's a constant variable, we can be used like the full capital. For example, if you have a pi value, we can use it as a capital. So we sure that it will not change anywhere, so we can access anywhere the constant values. We use entire thing as capital, but in Dart usually we don't follow this convention, but most other language the constant will be capital. So the another tip is, so whenever we are possible, declare it as a final and const. Why? Because the compiler knows how to behave. So that's so we know the value we can declare it as a final and const. When we develop, if we know the values of a variable, we must define it first as a constant and variable final. So it will be easy for the compiler. Otherwise, compiler need to do some checking and calculations. And don't overuse the var keyword wherever possible. So that will automatically infer the type we pass, just like if we pass John, it will take it as a string, but it is always good to have a string here. So better not to use var anywhere. It will be strongly typed keywords unless we don't know the type of the variable. So another tip is always initialize variables before using them. So that's, we need to initialize a variable before using them. If we don't know the value, we can use it as a nullable. For nullable, we add a question mark in front of the type and the variable. So by default, it will be equal to null. This is what happened if you do like this. Later on, we can pass the text whatever we want. So, but the important thing is we need to initialize it if you know the value. How about mutable variables? So this is what I talked earlier. We need to this one. Whenever possible, we need to add final const. That means it will make it as a immutable. So if you add a final before it, it will be a immutable string and it cannot be changed. So the memory usage will also increase. Another thing is that we have a lazy initialization. So instead of final and const, we can use a late variable before that. What late variable will do is it will not initialize the value here, but afterwards the code runs, we need to initialize it later anywhere in our code. Otherwise the compile time error will happen. So some calculations we can create a late value. After some calculation, we get from database and we do some calculation. We assign the value to the lazy value. So we are lazily assigning the value. First, we are not deciding assigning any value to it. Later on in our code, we add values. This scenario happens when we don't know the value in first, but after, in between the code runs, we come to know the value of a variable. Then we can use the late variable. And never use the dynamic typing. So this is very bad. Always use the strict typing. This will make the code less predictable. And clean up the unused variables. So whenever we remove a code from the code base, we also need to remove the initialization of the variable. Usually we forget that. And for the functions, we should use the final keywords before the any functions, because functions usually don't change. So we can add final in front of it, so it will make it as immutable. So it will save some memory. And avoid global variables. So we need to avoid all global variables. That's it. document your variables. So document your variables means we should, the name itself should be self explaining, and if it's not, we can use any commenting language to comment the variable what it's doing, why we declared it for. So we need to comment all variables, why we need that. Okay, this is the, okay, I come to the end of the slide. So thank you. This is the end of the talk.